Western officials and Kremlin critics blame Putin and his government for Navalny's death in prison. World leaders and Russian opposition activists wasted no time Friday in blaming the reported death of imprisoned opposition leader Alexei Navalny on President Vladimir Putin and his government. "It is obvious that he was killed by Putin," said Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, who was visiting Germany for the Munich Security Conference, as he sought aid for his country's efforts to fight off an invasion by Russia. "Putin doesn't care who dies, only for him to hold his position. This is why he must hold on to nothing. Putin must lose everything and be held responsible for his deeds," Zelenskyy added. U.S. President Joe Biden said Washington does not know exactly what happened, but there is no doubt that the death of Navalny was a consequence of something Putin and his thugs did. Navalny could have lived safely in exile, but instead returned to Russia to continue his work, despite knowing he could be imprisoned or killed because he believed so deeply in his country, in Russia. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, whose country temporarily took in Navalny in 2020 after he was poisoned with a nerve agent, praised the Kremlin critics' bravery and said his death makes clear what kind of regime this is. "He has probably now paid for this courage with his life," Scholz said, standing next to Zelenskyy. The German leader said he met Navalny in Berlin during his convalescence. Navalny, 47, was serving a 19-year prison sentence on extremism charges in a remote penal colony above the Arctic Circle at the time of his death. He had been behind bars since he returned from Germany in January 2021, serving time on various charges that he rejected as a politically motivated effort to keep him imprisoned for life. Navalny was brutally murdered by the Kremlin, said Latvian President Edgars Rinkevičs in a post on X, formerly Twitter. "That's a fact, and that is something one should know about the true nature of Russia's current regime." Navalny's associates stressed they did not have independent confirmation of his death in the reports that came from Russia's penitentiary officials. His close ally Ivan Zhdanov said, "Authorities must notify the relatives within 24 hours, but there have been no such notifications." Navalny's wife, Yulia Navalnaya, appearing at the Munich conference, said she did not know whether to believe the official Russian announcement because "We cannot trust Putin and the Putin government. They always lie." But if this is true, I want Putin and everyone around Putin, Putin's friends, his government, to know that they will bear responsibility for what they did to our country, to my family, and to my husband. And this day will come very soon, she said. Navalny's death also led to an outpouring of grief among Russians living abroad. In the Serbian capital of Belgrade, hundreds of Russians and others lit candles and laid flowers outside the Russian embassy. Tens of thousands of Russians have moved to Serbia, a fellow Slavic country, since Russia invaded Ukraine 2 years ago. Hundreds gathered in the Georgian capital of Tbilisi, which has also seen a huge influx of Russians since the invasion of Ukraine. Some held banners saying, "Putin is the killer," and "We will not forgive." Up to 300 people attended a similar rally in Georgia's third-largest city, Batumi. Protesters also assembled in the Armenian capital of Yerevan, another country that attracted a lot of Russians after the start of the war in Ukraine. In Israel, home to a large number of people who came from Russia, hundreds rallied outside the Russian embassy in Tel Aviv, chanting, "Russia without Putin," and "Russia will be free." Crowds of protesters also rallied in Berlin and Paris, as well as the capitals of Latvia, Bulgaria, and Estonia, plus other European cities. The outpouring of sympathy for Navalny's family and outrage at the Kremlin, which in recent years mounted an unprecedented crackdown on dissent, came from all over the world. If this is true, then no matter the formal cause, the responsibility for the premature death is Vladimir Putin personally, who first gave the green light to the poisoning of Alexei and then put him in prison, said Mikhail Khodorkovsky, an exiled Russia tycoon turned opposition figure in exile, in an online statement. Other Russian opposition activists echoed him. If it is confirmed, the death of Alexei is a murder, organized by Putin, opposition politician Dmitry Gudkov said on social media. Even if Alexei died of natural causes, those were triggered by his poisoning and further torture in prison. Former world chess champion turned Kremlin opponent Garry Kasparov said, Putin tried and failed to murder Navalny quickly and secretly with poison, and now he has murdered him slowly and publicly in prison. He was killed for exposing Putin and his mafia as the crooks and thieves they are, tweeted Kasparov, who lives abroad. Pyotr Verzilov, a prominent member of the Russian protest group Pussy Riot, said, Navalny was murdered in prison. In a post on X, Verzilov added, We will definitely take revenge and destroy this regime. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said Navalny's death showed that Putin fears nothing more than dissent from his own people. She called it a grim reminder of what Putin and his regime are all about, and added it should provide impetus to unite in our fight to safeguard the freedom and safety of those who dare to stand up against autocracy. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said the fact that Navalny was a prisoner makes it extremely important that Russia now answer all the questions that it will be asked about the cause of death. British Foreign Secretary David Cameron echoed her remarks, saying, Putin's Russia imprisoned him, trumped up charges against him, poisoned him, sent him to an Arctic penal colony, and now he has tragically died, and we should hold Putin accountable for this. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said the news had Canadians reeling. He was such a strong fighter for democracy, for freedoms, for the Russian people. It really shows the extent to which Putin will crack down on anyone who is fighting for freedom for the Russian people, he said. There is no question that Alexei Navalny is dead because he stood up to Putin, he stood up to the Kremlin, Trudeau added. Bulgarian Prime Minister Nikolai Denkov said Navalny was for years a symbol of the fight against the dictatorship in Russia, of the fight for free speech, of the fact that a person cannot be imprisoned for a different opinion. Russian lawmakers and other officials bristled at the Western outrage. Sergei Mironov, head of a pro-Kremlin party, said Navalny's death helps Russia's foes. Of course, health issues could have been the cause of death, but in any case, a premature death of a notorious opposition figure, especially a month before the presidential election, is beneficial first and foremost to Russia's enemies, Mironov said in an online statement. They will use it to the maximum to pressure us from the outside and to rock with situation within the country. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said, the immediate reaction of NATO leaders to Navalny's death in the form of direct accusations against Russia is self-exposing. The death was still being investigated, but the West's conclusions are already ready, she said.